More of a team player? I repeated, my voice steady despite the anger bubbling beneath the surface. My boss Marcus leaned back in his leather chair, that insufferable smile still plastered across his face. Look, Emma, you're great at what you do. Nobody's denying that. But Jessica, she knows how to work with people. She brings energy to the office. You're just too focused on results. To focus on results. The words echoed in my head as I sat there, gripping the armrests of my chair. 5 years I'd given to this company. 5 years of early mornings, late nights, and sacrificed weekends. I'd single-handedly landed our biggest clients, streamlined our operations, and increased our department's efficiency by 40%. And now I was being passed over for a promotion because I was too focused on results. My name is Emma Chin, and at 32, I learned the hard way that corporate success isn't always about merit. Sometimes it's about playing the game, about knowing whose ego to stroke and whose coffee to fetch. Jessica was certainly good at that. She'd been with the company for barely 2 years, but she'd already mastered the art of taking credit for other people's work while doing virtually none of her own. I watched as Marcus shuffled some papers on his desk, probably expecting me to break down or protest. But I didn't. Instead, I reached into my bag and pulled out a crisp white envelope. I understand, I said, placing the envelope on his desk, and I appreciate you letting me know. Here's my resignation letter. My last day will be in 2 weeks. Marcus's smug smile faltered. This clearly wasn't the reaction he'd expected. Now, Emma, let's not be hasty, just because you didn't get the promotion. It's not hasty, I cut him off, my voice calm but firm. I've given it a lot of thought, and you're right, I am focused on results. That's why I've decided to pursue other opportunities where that quality is valued. What Marcus didn't know, what none of them knew, was that I hadn't just been working on company projects these past 5 years. In my spare time, I'd been building something of my own. Something that would make Marcus' promotion look like the joke it was. As I walked out of his office, I could feel the eyes of my coworkers on me. News traveled fast in our department, and Jessica was probably already planning how to redecorate my cubicle. I kept my head high as I made my way back to my desk, remembering the other piece of paper tucked inside that resignation letter. The one that would make Marcus realize exactly what he was losing. The next 2 weeks were exactly what you'd expect. Jessica pranced around the office like she owned the place, making a show of learning the ropes of her new position. She'd stop by my desk occasionally, her voice dripping with fake sympathy. Emma, I hope there are no hard feelings, she said one morning, perching on the edge of my desk. I know you worked really hard for this promotion. I looked up from my computer, where I was methodically downloading copies of all my work files. Not to steal them, I had too much integrity for that, but to ensure I had documentation of everything I contributed to the company. No hard feelings at all, Jessica. I'm sure you'll do great. She smiled, probably thinking I was admitting defeat. She had no idea. The truth was, for the past 3 years, I'd been secretly developing a revolutionary project management system. It had started as a way to keep track of my own work, but it had evolved into something much more powerful. I tested it, refined it, and used it to achieve those results that Marcus found so troublesome. And now, with my resignation letter, I'd included a detailed report showing exactly how much money and time my system had saved the company. The kicker? I'd also included a notice that I'd filed for a patent on the system 6 months ago. It had been approved last week. But that wasn't even the best part. A week into my notice period, I received an email from Robert Chen, no relation, the CEO of our biggest competitor. He'd heard through the grapevine that I was leaving and wanted to meet for coffee. I'd smiled when I saw his name in my inbox. Everything was falling into place exactly as I planned. The meeting with Robert was everything I'd hoped for. He'd been following my work for months, impressed by how I transformed our client relationships and streamlined our processes. He didn't just offer me a job. He offered me a partnership role complete with creative control over my system's implementation across their entire organization. We've been looking for someone like you, Emma, he said, sliding a contract across the table. Someone who understands that results matter. The salary is triple what you're making now, plus equity in the company. I took the contract, my hands steady despite my racing heart. This was what recognition felt like. This was what it felt like to be valued. The day I handed in my security badge, Marcus called me into his office one last time. The smug smile was gone, replaced by something that looked almost like panic. Emma, we need to talk about this report you included with your resignation letter, he said, holding up the papers with shaking hands. Why didn't you tell us about this system before? I sat down, smoothing my skirt as I did. I tried, Marcus. 3 times in the past year, I requested meetings to discuss implementing new efficiency measures. You said we needed to focus on team dynamics instead. His face paled as he flipped through the pages. But this is revolutionary. The potential savings alone. And you've already patented it. I nodded, enjoying the way his voice cracked. I have, and I've accepted a position with Chen Industries. They're very excited about implementing the system company-wide. Marcus slumped in his chair, the full weight of his mistake finally hitting him. Chen Industries, our biggest competitor. Emma, you can't. What about loyalty to the company? Loyalty? I couldn't help but laugh. Like the loyalty you showed me when you promoted Jessica. Like the loyalty you showed when you dismissed every suggestion I made because I wasn't enough of a team player. I stood up, straightening my jacket. You know what the funny thing is, Marcus? If you looked past your biases, if you actually paid attention to the results I was achieving instead of focusing on who brought you coffee or laughed at your jokes, none of this would be happening. But you didn't. And now Chen Industries is going to have an advantage that you can't match. We'll match any offer they made, he said quickly, desperation creeping into his voice. We'll promote you to senior director. Just don't go to Chen. I shook my head, almost pitying him. It's not about the money or the title, Marcus. It's about respect. It's about recognizing value, and you've made it very clear where you stand on that. As I walked out of his office for the last time, I heard him frantically dialing his phone, probably calling the executive team to figure out damage control. But it was too late. The patent was mine, the new job was signed, and Jessica. Well, Jessica would soon learn that taking credit for other people's work only gets you so far when you have to actually deliver results. That evening, as I packed up my desk, I found a post-it note stuck to my monitor. It was from Jessica, written in her flowing script. Sorry to see you go. Keep in touch. I smiled as I crumpled it up and tossed it in the trash. Oh, she'd be hearing about me all right. The whole industry would be. My first day at Chen Industries felt like stepping into a different world. Instead of a cramped cubicle, I had a corner office with floor-to-ceiling windows. My name was etched on a sleek glass nameplate. Emma Chen, Director of Operations and Strategic Innovation. But the real difference wasn't in the office or the title. It was in how people treated me. Robert Chen, the CEO, had called an all-hands meeting to introduce me. Standing at the front of the conference room, he didn't just announce my position. He outlined my achievements, explained the value of my management system, and made it clear that I would have full authority to implement changes across the organization. Emma isn't just joining our team, he said, his voice carrying across the packed room. She's bringing with her a revolutionary approach to project management that will transform how we operate. I expect everyone to give her their full cooperation. The contrast to my old company couldn't have been more stark. There, I'd been the quiet workhorse, the one who got things done but was never acknowledged. Here, I was being celebrated for exactly what Marcus had dismissed, my focus on results. But the real satisfaction came 3 months later. I was in the middle of a team meeting when my phone buzzed with a text from my old colleague, David. You might want to check the industry news, it read. Something big just dropped about Meridian Corp. Meridian Corp, my old company. I excused myself from the meeting and hurried back to my office, pulling up the industry news site on my computer. The headline made me catch my breath. Meridian Corp shares preliminary 30% following disastrous coworker The article detailed how Meridian had lost 3 major clients in the past quarter, with several others threatening to follow. Project delays had skyrocketed, costs had spiraled out of control, and efficiency metrics had dropped to all-time lows. The company's stock was in freefall. As I scrolled through the article, one quote caught my eye. It was from Thomas Reynolds, one of our biggest former clients. The quality of service at Meridian has deteriorated significantly in recent months. Projects that used to be completed smoothly are now constantly delayed. It's like they've completely lost their organizational structure. I couldn't help but smile. Those smooth-running projects. They'd all been managed through my system. The organizational structure they'd lost. That was the framework I built over 5 years, the one Marcus had never bothered to understand. My phone buzzed again. Another text from David. Jessica's having a complete meltdown. She can't handle the workload, and Marcus is starting to realize she has no idea what she's doing. I set my phone down, thinking about the irony of it all. Jessica, who'd spent 2 years taking credit for other people's work, was finally being forced to produce results on her own. And Marcus, who'd chosen style over substance, was watching his department crumble. But I had bigger things to focus on. At Chen Industries, my system was already showing remarkable results. Project completion times had been cut in half, client satisfaction scores were at record highs, and our efficiency metrics were off the charts. Robert had already approved my proposal to expand the system company-wide, and we were in talks with several major clients who wanted to license the technology. One morning, about 6 months after I'd left Meridian, I walked into my office to find Robert waiting for me, a newspaper in his hands. "Have you seen this?" he asked, holding it up. The headline read, "Meridian QRP CEO STPS Gallon Amad Continuing Crisis." I nodded, taking the paper from him. I saw the announcement. "Word is they're completely restructuring the company," Robert said, watching my reaction carefully. The board finally realized how badly they'd mismanaged their talent. Apparently, they tried to recreate your system, but without the underlying architecture. It wouldn't work, I finished for him. The system isn't just about the software or the processes. It's about understanding how all the pieces fit together. Robert smiled, the kind of smile that said he knew exactly what he had in me. "Which is why we're announcing your promotion to Executive Vice President next week." The board voted unanimously. They've seen what you've done here in just 6 months, and they want more. I felt a warmth spread through my chest. This was what recognition felt like. This was what it meant to be valued for your actual contributions, not just your ability to play office politics. Later that day, I received an unexpected email. It was from Marcus. "Emma, I hope this finds you well. I'm sure you've heard about the changes at Meridian. I wanted to reach out and acknowledge that I made a massive mistake in not recognizing your value to the company. The system you built was the backbone of our success, and we didn't realize it until it was gone. I'm no longer with Meridian. The board asked for my resignation last week. Before I left, I made sure they knew that this could have been avoided if we listened to you. Jessica resigned a month ago. Turns out managing actual projects is a lot harder than taking credit for other people's work. I know it's too late to fix things, but I wanted you to know that you were right. Results do matter. I just wish I'd seen that sooner. Best regards, Marcus." I read the email twice, letting the words sink in. There was a time when this kind of acknowledgement would have meant everything to me. Now, sitting in my executive office at Chen Industries, preparing for another board meeting where my ideas would be heard and valued, it felt like a footnote in a story that had already moved on. I clicked reply and typed a simple response. "Marcus, thank you for your email. You're right, results do matter. I hope you find success in your future endeavors. Best, Emma." As I hit send, I glanced at the framed patent certificate hanging on my wall, the one for my management system. Below it was a fresh plaque commemorating our record-breaking quarter, and beside that, a news article featuring me as one of the industry's rising stars. I thought about how far I'd come from that day in Marcus's office, when he told me I was too focused on results. That criticism had turned out to be the greatest compliment he could have given me. Because here, in my new role with my new team, those results were changing the industry. The next morning, I called a team meeting. As I looked around the conference room at the eager faces, people who respected me, who valued my input, who were excited to learn from me, I felt a deep sense of satisfaction. "Today," I began, "we're going to talk about our next big project. But first, I want to share a story about the importance of recognizing value, not just in systems or processes, but in people." And as I spoke, I could see understanding dawn in their eyes. They got it. They understood that success isn't just about playing the game or being a team player. It's about creating real value and having the courage to stand by your convictions. Sometimes I realized the best revenge isn't about getting even. It's about moving forward, about building something better than what you left behind. Marcus, Jessica, and Meridian Corp had taught me that valuable lesson, even if they hadn't meant to. As I drove home that evening, I passed by the Meridian Corp building. The logo that once seemed so imposing now looked tired and dated. A for lease sign hung in one of the windows. They were downsizing, another casualty of their poor management decisions. But I didn't feel any triumph at their downfall. Instead, I felt grateful. Grateful that they had underestimated me, grateful that they had pushed me away, grateful that they had forced me to prove my worth not just to them, but to myself. Because sometimes, the biggest opportunities come disguised as rejection. Sometimes, being too focused on results is exactly what you need to be. And sometimes, the best response to someone undervaluing you is to show them exactly what they missed out on. My phone buzzed. Another text from David. Meridian's board is asking about you. They want to know if you'd consider coming back as CEO. I smiled as I typed my response. Thanks, but I'm exactly where I need to be. And I was, because success isn't just about proving others wrong. It's about proving yourself right. It's about standing firm in your convictions, even when others doubt you. It's about knowing your worth and not settling for less. As I pulled into my driveway, I thought about all the other Emmas out there, talented people being overlooked because they were too focused on results. Maybe my story would inspire them to stand their ground, to believe in their value, to create their own opportunities. After all, sometimes the best way to handle rejection is to turn it into rocket fuel, to use it as motivation to build something better, something stronger, something that makes them realize exactly what they lost. And as I sat down at my home office to review the latest proposals for expanding our system globally, I couldn't help but smile. Because in the end, Marcus had been right about one thing. I was too focused on results, and that focus had taken me exactly where I needed to be.
The crystal chandeliers cast warm light over the dining room of Lumiere, the newest addition to Manhattan's fine dining scene. I stood quietly in the corner, wearing my simple black server's uniform, watching my family celebrate my brother's promotion to senior partner at his law firm. The restaurant's grand opening had been planned for months, and tonight marked the culmination of years of careful planning and investment. "Sophia, you're being awfully quiet over there," my stepmother Patricia called out, gesturing with her champagne flute toward where I stood arranging wine glasses. "Come join the family celebration instead of working all the time." I continued polishing the crystal stemware, each piece worth more than most people's monthly rent. The irony wasn't lost on me that my family had chosen this particular restaurant for their celebration dinner, completely unaware of who actually owned it. "I'm fine here, Patricia. Just making sure everything runs smoothly." My father, Roberto Torres, loosened his tie and leaned back in his chair. The private dining room we'd reserved overlooked Central Park, its floor-to-ceiling windows offering a view that cost extra even at establishments like this. "That's the problem with you, Mija. Always working, never enjoying the finer things in life." "Maybe because she can't afford the finer things," my brother Miguel chimed in, raising his glass to the other family members seated around the mahogany table. "Some of us have worked hard to earn our place at tables like this." The comment drew chuckles from my aunts and uncles, all successful professionals who'd built careers in law, medicine, and finance. My cousin Elena, a cardiologist, nodded approvingly. "Miguel's right. This restaurant probably costs more per meal than Sophia makes in a week working at that hotel downtown." "Actually, I work several different places," I said quietly, arranging the silverware with precise attention to detail. Each fork, knife, and spoon was positioned exactly 1 inch from the table edge, a standard I'd implemented across all my establishments. "Exactly my point," Roberto laughed, the sound echoing off the restaurant's hand-painted Italian walls. "Multiple jobs just to make ends meet. Stick to fast food, Sophia. That's more your speed anyway." The sommelier approached our table with a bottle of Dom Perignon 2010, its price tag equivalent to a luxury car payment. He presented the label to Miguel, who nodded approvingly despite having no idea what he was actually approving. The cork released with a satisfying pop, and golden bubbles danced in crystal flutes that I'd personally selected from Baccarat's exclusive collection. "You know what I love about places like this?" Patricia mused, scanning the dining room with its Michelin-starred ambience and impeccable service. "The attention to detail. Every single element is perfect. This is what success looks like, Sophia. This is what happens when you aim higher than serving tables." My phone buzzed discreetly in my pocket. A text from my head chef. "Kitchen running flawlessly. New York Times critic just ordered the tasting menu. Ready for tonight's reviews. I glanced at it briefly and returned my attention to the family dinner conversation. The service here is exceptional, commented my uncle Carlos, a successful investment banker. You can tell this place has serious money behind it. Probably some wealthy investor or restaurant group. Regular people don't open establishments like this. Definitely not, agreed Elena. This level of luxury requires millions in startup capital. The artwork alone probably costs more than most people's houses. I continued working quietly, ensuring every aspect of their dining experience met the exacting standards I'd established when designing the restaurant. The hand-carved moldings, imported marble floors and custom-designed lighting fixtures had taken 2 years to plan and execute. Every detail reflected a vision of culinary excellence that extended far beyond this single location. Sophia should pay attention to how real restaurants operate, Roberto suggested, gesturing broadly around the opulent space. Maybe she could learn something about proper service standards instead of working at those chain hotels downtown. Speaking of which, Miguel addressed me directly. How's the hotel job going? Still cleaning rooms and changing sheets. I do event coordination, I replied simply, adjusting the placement of a water glass. Same thing, he waved dismissively. Manual labor. At least you're employed though. That's something, I suppose. The conversation continued around me as I moved efficiently through my tasks, invisible to my family despite standing just feet away. They discussed stock portfolios, vacation homes, private school options for children not yet born. The familiar rhythm of their success-focused chatter provided background noise as I ensured their evening remained perfect. You know what Sophia's problem is? Patricia announced to the table, her voice carrying the authority of someone who'd married into the family's success. No ambition. No vision for her future. She's content being a worker instead of a leader. Some people are natural followers, Carlos nodded sagely. Nothing wrong with knowing your limitations. The service industry needs employees too. My phone buzzed again. This time it was my restaurant group's CFO. Quarterly reports ready. Revenue up 340% across all locations. Board wants expansion timeline for European properties. I silenced the device and continued working. The thing is, Elena continued, warming to the topic, Sophia could do better if she applied herself. He's smart enough. She just lacks the drive to pursue real success. Real success requires real sacrifice, Miguel added. Law school was brutal, but look where it got me. Partner track at 32 six-figure salary, respect in the community. That's what happens when you refuse to settle for mediocrity. Roberto raised his champagne glass in a toast. To Miguel and to all of us who've worked hard to earn our place at tables like this. May we never forget the value of true achievement. The family raised their glasses in unison, the crystals singing softly as they clinked together. I watched from my position near the service station, noting how the light caught the bubbles in the Dom Perignon, how the Waterford crystal reflected the warm glow of the handcrafted chandeliers above. And Sophia, Roberto added with paternal condescension, maybe someday you'll understand what it means to aim higher than serving other people's success. The words hung in the air as I folded linen napkins with mechanical precision. Each crease was exact, each corner perfectly aligned. The skill came from years of experience in hospitality management, though my family interpreted it as evidence of my limited aspirations. She probably thinks this is impressive, Patricia whispered loudly enough for me to hear. Working at a fancy restaurant, being around successful people. But there's a difference between serving excellence and achieving it. The maitre d', James, approached our table with practiced elegance. His movements were fluid and professional, the result of extensive training in European service standards. He carried himself with the dignity of someone who understood that hospitality was an art form, not merely a job. Good evening, James addressed the table with respectful warmth. I trust everything has been satisfactory this evening? Exceptional, Miguel replied, slightly intoxicated from the champagne and his own success. Absolutely world-class. You should be proud to work at an establishment like this. Thank you, sir, James smiled politely. We take great pride in maintaining the highest standards. In fact, tonight is particularly special for us. Oh, Elena asked with mild curiosity. Yes, We're expecting the Michelin inspector this evening. Tonight's service will determine whether we receive our third star, making us one of only 14 three-star restaurants in New York City. The family exchanged impressed glances. Roberto leaned forward with newfound interest. 3 stars. That's incredibly rare, isn't it? Exceptionally rare, James confirmed. It represents the pinnacle of culinary achievement. Only the most extraordinary restaurants ever reach that level. Patricia practically glowed with excitement. How thrilling to be here on such an important night. We're witnessing history. I continued my work silently, arranging fresh orchids in the centerpiece vase. The flowers had been flown in from Thailand that morning, their delicate petals adding a touch of natural beauty to the table's formal elegance. My family remained completely absorbed in their conversation with James, unaware that they were discussing my life's work. The owner must be incredibly nervous tonight, Carlos mused. That kind of recognition can make or break a career in this industry. Actually, James replied with a slight smile, the owner has been remarkably calm about the entire process. Very hands-on, very detail-oriented. She's been here all evening, personally ensuring everything meets her exacting standards. She? Elena asked with surprise. The owner is a woman? Yes, and quite young too. A true visionary in the industry. She's built an impressive empire across multiple cities, all before turning 30. Roberto shook his head in amazement. That's extraordinary. What kind of background does someone need to achieve that level of success so young? Extensive experience in hospitality management, I believe, James replied. She started from the ground up, learning every aspect of the business from service to operations to financial management. The irony was so thick I could have served it as the evening's dessert course. My family sat discussing my achievements with admiration while simultaneously dismissing me as a failure, all within the same conversation. I'd love to meet her, Patricia gushed. What an inspiration for young women everywhere. Certainly, James nodded. I'm sure she'd be delighted to meet such distinguished guests. My phone vibrated with an urgent message from the kitchen. Michelin inspector identified at table 12. Final course being prepared. Need owner's approval for wine pairing. I glanced at the message and looked toward the kitchen where my head chef awaited my signal. The dining room buzzed with subtle energy as word spread among the staff that tonight's service was being evaluated for the highest honor in culinary excellence. Servers moved with extra precision, each interaction calibrated to perfection. The sommelier consulted his notes more carefully. The chef plated each dish with artistic intensity. You know what I find fascinating? Miguel said, swirling his champagne thoughtfully. The owner probably started exactly where Sophia is now. Working service jobs, learning the industry from the bottom up. The difference, Roberto interjected, is ambition. The owner had vision and drive. Sophia seems content to stay where she is. Maybe Sophia just needs the right inspiration, Elena suggested charitably. Seeing what's possible when you really apply yourself. The conversation was interrupted by movement near the restaurant's entrance. A distinguished gentleman in an elegant suit approached our section of the dining room, his presence commanding immediate attention from the staff. He moved with the measured confidence of someone accustomed to evaluating excellence. James straightened perceptibly as the man approached. Ladies and gentlemen, he announced to our table, I'd like you to meet Monsieur Beaumont, this evening's Michelin inspector. The family fell silent, suddenly aware they were in the presence of one of the most influential critics in the culinary world. Roberto set down his champagne flute with extra care, as if even the slightest noise might disrupt the evening's significance. Monsieur Beaumont surveyed the dining room with practiced eyes before addressing James. The service this evening has been extraordinary. The attention to detail, the precision of execution, the seamless coordination between kitchen and front of house, it's remarkable. Thank you, sir, James replied with barely contained excitement. I'd like to speak with the owner if possible, Beaumont continued. This establishment demonstrates a level of excellence that deserves recognition at the highest level. My family exchanged thrilled glances, apparently believing they were about to witness a moment of culinary history. Patricia gripped Miguel's arm with excitement while Roberto leaned forward eagerly, not wanting to miss a single word. Of course, James smiled broadly. Miss Torres has been here all evening, personally overseeing every detail. The words hit my family like a perfectly timed thunderclap. Roberto's champagne flute froze halfway to his lips. Patricia's excited expression transformed into confusion, then dawning comprehension, then complete shock. Miguel's confident posture crumbled as he processed what he'd just heard. Monsieur Beaumont turned toward me with professional warmth. Miss Torres, congratulations. After careful evaluation of this evening's service, I'm pleased to inform you that Lumiere has earned its third Michelin star. I set down the linen napkin I'd been folding and smiled quietly. Thank you, Monsieur Beaumont. That's wonderful news. The Michelin inspector continued, unaware of the family drama unfolding at the table behind him. Your restaurant group's reputation for excellence is well-deserved. 7 locations, all maintaining exceptional standards across multiple cities. It's truly impressive work. Roberto's champagne had gone completely flat in his motionless glass. The bubbles that had danced so elegantly moments before now sat lifeless, much like his confidence in his assumptions about my capabilities. 7 locations? Elena whispered, her medical training apparently failing to help her process this information. Yes, Beaumont confirmed, the Torres restaurant group has become synonymous with culinary excellence. Ms. Torres has revolutionized fine dining in multiple markets while maintaining the personal touch that makes each location unique. Patricia's face had gone pale, her earlier enthusiasm replaced by the sinking realization that she'd spent the entire evening condescending to one of the most successful restaurateurs in the country. I should mention, I said calmly to Monsieur Beaumont, that tonight's celebration is particularly special. We're honoring my brother's recent promotion to senior partner at his law firm. Wonderful, Beaumont smiled warmly. Success should always be celebrated among family. Miguel's mouth opened and closed soundlessly, like a fish suddenly removed from water. His senior partnership, which had seemed so impressive an hour ago, now felt diminished by comparison to the empire I'd built while he was criticizing my lack of ambition. Miss Torres, Beaumont continued, might I ask about your background? Your success at such a young age is remarkable. I started in hospitality management, I replied simply. Worked my way up through every position: server, coordinator, manager. I believe you can't run excellent restaurants without understanding every aspect of the operation. The irony wasn't lost on anyone at the table. Every job they'd dismissed as beneath me had actually been building toward this moment, this achievement, this level of success they could barely comprehend. And the financial investment required for this level of operation? Carlos asked weakly, his investment banking experience finally kicking in. Substantial, I confirmed. Each location represents approximately 15 million in initial investment, not including ongoing operational costs and staff training. The number hit them hard. Roberto's hand shook as he sipped flat champagne. $105 million. Beaumont spoke. The Times wants a statement. You're the youngest woman to win 3 Michelin stars in New York. My phone buzzed nonstop. Publicist, CFO, operations team. The empire they thought was just hotel work never stopped moving. If you'll excuse me, I told Beaumont. I need to check on the kitchen. Behind me, Patricia whispered to Roberto. How long has she owned this place? The answer, 3 years. 3 years they mocked me while dining in my restaurants. The kitchen exploded with cheers. My staff knew what we'd achieved. Chef Martinez, I said. Dessert for table 7. Something special. What kind? Something humble, I smiled. Through the service window I saw my family silent, their dinner untouched. Roberto's champagne was flat, just like his view of me had always been. The golden 60 balloons bobbed gently above the mahogany dining table as my sister Rebecca continued her quarterly update. 3rd consecutive record-breaking quarter at Anderson Global, she announced, tapping her designer pen against a leather portfolio. We're projecting a 40% increase in revenue next year. Wonderful, darling. Mother beamed, passing the roasted potatoes. Gerald, isn't that wonderful? Dad nodded approvingly, his CEO persona firmly in place even at his own birthday dinner. That's the kind of growth we like to see. Real business, real results. I pushed my food around my plate, already knowing what was coming. Right on cue, all eyes turned to me. And what about you, Michael? Rebecca's smile didn't reach her eyes. Still playing with computers in your garage? Actually, it's an office now, I corrected quietly. Downtown. Oh. Mother perked up. Like a real company? Quantum Tech has always been a real company, I said, keeping my voice level. We're just selective about our clients. Rebecca snorted delicately. Selective? Last I heard you had 3 clients? 5, I corrected. All major tech firms. Speaking of tech firms, Dad cut in. Rebecca's division just landed the Anderson Global Cybersecurity contract. 9 figures, company-wide implementation. I took a careful sip of wine, saying nothing. You should talk to Rebecca about your little business, Mother suggested brightly. Maybe she could throw some work your way. That's thoughtful, Mother, but dash. Oh, please, Rebecca waved her hand dismissively. We need enterprise-level solutions, not garage startup experiments. Our new system is state-of-the-art. The best in the industry. Her laptop chimed with an incoming email. She flipped it open, then frowned. That's odd. Problem? I asked mildly. Just a system notification. Probably routine maintenance. She tapped a few keys, her frown deepening. Although, another time, more urgent this time. Rebecca's screen flickered, then displayed a message that made her face go pale. Access revoked by order of Quantum Tech. What's wrong? Dad leaned over. Some kind of error. Michael, Rebecca's voice had lost its condescension. Why is your company name on my security alert? I took another sip of wine. You know, it's funny you should mention that new cybersecurity contract. What did you do? Me? Nothing. I set down my glass. But you might want to check your phone. And your tablet. Actually, check any device connected to Anderson Global's network. Rebecca frantically grabbed her phone, but the screen showed the same message. Around the table, realization began to dawn. You're behind their security system, Dad said slowly. Quantum Tech is the experimental startup that developed the quantum encryption protocol Anderson Global depends on. I nodded. Along with 4 other major tech companies you've probably heard of. But the contract was with Superior Systems, Rebecca protested. Their pitch was incredible. The technology was licensed from us, I finished. Superior Systems is one of our implementation partners. They handle sales and deployment. We focus on innovation. Mother's hand trembled as she reached for her wine. How long? 3 years, I said. Remember when you all laughed at me for turning down that corporate job? I was already developing the encryption protocol. When you mocked my little hobby last Christmas, we were finalizing patents. Those patents. Dad's business mind was racing. The industry impact is why we're selective about clients. I pulled out my phone, tapped a few commands. Rebecca's devices suddenly reactivated. We don't chase contracts. They chase us. Rebecca stared at her restored screen. The level of control you have over our entire system is exactly what you paid for, I said. Top-tier security with quantum-level encryption. Though you might want to update your personal password. Queen Bee 123 isn't exactly fortress-level security. You can see my password? I can see everything on your network. That's literally what you hired my company to protect. I turned to Dad. By the way, happy birthday. Sorry about the dramatic demonstration, but after 5 years of being dismissed as a hobby programmer. 9 figures, he whispered. The Anderson contract alone is a small part of our annual revenue, I completed. Turns out quantum encryption is quite valuable in the digital age. Who you? The silence that fell over the dinner table was broken only by the gentle bobbing of birthday balloons. My family's worldview, where success meant corner offices and corporate titles, was being forcibly rebooted. Why didn't you tell us? Mother finally asked. I tried. Every family dinner. Every holiday. But you were all too busy celebrating real business success to listen. Rebecca closed her laptop slowly. Superior Systems presents the quarterly reports to our board tomorrow. Will the system work perfectly? I smiled. Of course. We're professionals. Unlike some, we don't let family dynamics affect business decisions. Dad set down his fork. Your sister's division will receive the same excellent service as all our clients, I assured him. Though she might want to stop calling us a garage startup in board meetings. The quantum encryption algorithms get sensitive about that. You heard those meetings? Rebecca's voice was faint. No, but our AI monitoring system did. It flags certain keywords for review. Garage startup is apparently one of them. Interesting coding quirk. I stood, straightening my jacket. Not designer, but well-suited for someone who spent more time with quantum computers than corporate boards. Now, if you'll excuse me, I have a video call with our Tokyo office. But please enjoy the rest of Dad's birthday dinner. And Rebecca? I paused at the door. The system maintenance notification? That wasn't routine. You might want to update your entire security protocol. I'll have our team send over the recommendations. I didn't make it 3 steps into the hallway before Dad's voice called out. Michael. Wait. The sound of his chair scraping back, followed by hurried footsteps. I turned, finding him looking somehow older than his 60 years, the confident CEO facade cracking. That quantum encryption protocol you mentioned, he said, lowering his voice. The one Anderson Global uses. Is also used by nearly every major financial institution in Asia, I finished. I know. We developed it. He leaned against the wall, processing. The Financial Times article last month, about the revolutionary security system preventing cyber attacks on the Tokyo Stock Exchange. Page 6, I nodded. There was a nice photo of our team. I'm the one in the t-shirt looking unprofessional, as Mother would say. From the dining room, I could hear Rebecca frantically making phone calls, her voice carrying an edge of panic I'd never heard before. She's calling superior systems, I explained. They'll confirm everything. Though she might want to wait 3 hours. It's still the middle of the night in their time zone. Dad ran a hand through his silver hair. All those times we told you to get a real job. I had one. Still do. Just not the kind you recognize. Because it didn't fit our definition of success, he acknowledged. My phone buzzed, the Tokyo office calling early. I held up a finger to pause our conversation and answered. Hi, Tanaka-san. Yes, the new protocol is ready for testing. No, the quantum stability issues have been resolved. Yes, I'll review the data personally. I switched seamlessly between Japanese and English, discussing technical specifications that would have sounded like science fiction to my family a few years ago. Dad watched, his expression shifting from confusion to something approaching awe. When did you learn Japanese? He asked after I ended the call. Around the same time I was wasting time in my garage, I replied. Turns out international business requires international communication. Rebecca appeared in the doorway, her face ashen. Michael, the board meeting tomorrow. The security presentation. Will proceed as planned, I assured her. Superior Systems will demonstrate the system's capabilities, the board will be impressed, and your division will look excellent. As agreed in our contract. But you could have. Could have what? Embarrassed you in front of the board? Revealed that your garage startup brother is actually behind the technology you've been praising. I shook my head. That would be unprofessional. We value our clients' success, even when they don't know who we are. Mother joined us in the hallway, clutching her tablet. I've been reading about quantum tech online, she said quietly. The valuations, the patents, are considerable, I finished. Though we prefer to focus on innovation rather than financials. More than considerable, Dad corrected, still scrolling through his phone. Michael, these numbers are why we can be selective about our clients, I said. And why we don't need to chase contracts or prove ourselves to anyone. Rebecca's phone chimed again. Another system notification. She flinched. Just routine maintenance, I assured her. Though you might want to implement 2-factor authentication on your personal devices. Your password choices are still concerning. You can't just access our systems whenever you want, she protested weakly. Actually, that's exactly what your company is paying us to do, I corrected. Monitor, protect, and occasionally demonstrate vulnerabilities. It's all in the contract you apparently didn't read very carefully. Dad was still processing the implications. Those hobby projects you used to talk about at dinner were early versions of what's now the most advanced encryption protocol in the world, I confirmed. But you all made it clear that unless I was wearing a suit in a corner office, it wasn't real work. Mother touched my arm hesitantly. We didn't understand. No, I agreed. He didn't. Because understanding would have required actually listening when I tried to explain. It would have meant accepting that success doesn't always look like your version of it. My phone buzzed again. Another international call waiting. The quantum computing world didn't stop for family revelations. I need to take this, I said. But Dad? Happy birthday again. Consider this your gift. The knowledge that your son's hobby is now protecting most of the world's financial systems. Michael, he called as I turned to leave. The family dinner next month. Perhaps you could tell us about your work? Really tell us. I paused, considering. I could. But it would mean accepting that sometimes the biggest innovations come from garages, not boardrooms. That sometimes the kid playing with computers becomes the one protecting the real businesses. Rebecca cleared her throat. I think we're ready to listen now. Good, I smiled slightly. Because quantum computing is revolutionizing everything you think you know about business. And as it happens, your little brother is leading that revolution. I answered my phone, switching to Mandarin this time as I walked away. Behind me, I could hear them returning to the dining room, the conversation notably different from their usual corporate success stories. The birthday balloons still bobbed gently above the table, but now they seemed to be celebrating something else. The moment when a family's definition of success finally quantum leaped into the modern age. In my pocket, my phone buzzed with another system alert. Somewhere in Tokyo, another financial system was becoming quantum secure. Another piece of the digital future falling into place, protected by the company they'd dismissed as a hobby. 1 month later, I stood in front of my family's dining room table again, but this time was different. Gone were the dismissive glances and condescending smirks. Instead, my audience sat rapt as I explained quantum computing principles using a holographic display projected from my custom-built smartphone. The quantum bits, or qubits, exist in multiple states simultaneously, I explained, manipulating the 3D visualization. This allows for computational power exponentially greater than traditional systems. And this is what protects the financial networks? Dad leaned forward, his reading glasses perched on his nose as he studied the complex patterns. Among other things, I nodded. Our latest protocol can detect intrusion attempts before they even begin, using quantum predictive algorithms. Rebecca, who had spent the last month diving deep into our technology, raised her hand like an eager student. Is that how you knew my password? Quantum prediction. No, I smiled. That was just because you used the same password for everything and your personal email was hacked 2 years ago. Basic security oversight. Mother, who had replaced her usual society magazines with technology journals, gestured at the hologram. The Financial Times said quantum tech is working on something revolutionary for medical data protection. Can you tell us about that? Actually, I expanded the display, revealing a new set of algorithms. We're announcing it next week. A quantum encrypted medical records system that allows instant, secure access across all authorized facilities globally. We're calling it HealthQuant. The implications for emergency care alone, Dad whispered, are worth more than Anderson Global's entire market cap, I confirmed. But we're licensing it at affordable rates to make it accessible to smaller hospitals. That's not very profit-focused, Rebecca noted, her corporate mindset showing. No, it's human-focused, I corrected. Sometimes the best business decisions aren't about maximizing profits. They're about maximizing impact. The doorbell rang, interrupting our discussion. Mother returned moments later with an elegant envelope. It's for you, Michael. From the governor's office. I opened it, already knowing what it contained. They're honoring quantum tech with the State Innovation Award. The ceremony's next month. Black tie? Mother asked hopefully. Actually, I'm wearing one of my quantum pattern t-shirts. The governor's office specifically requested it. Apparently, it's become something of a trademark. Dad chuckled. Remember when we used to criticize your casual dress code? Right around the time you were telling me to get rid of my garage workbench and buy a proper desk, I smiled. That workbench is now in the Smithsonian's Technology Innovation Exhibit, by the way. They're calling it the birthplace of quantum security. Rebecca shook her head in amazement. All those years we thought we were the successful ones. Success isn't always visible, I said, shutting down the hologram. Sometimes it's lines of code, quantum algorithms, and yes, a guy in a t-shirt working in his garage. Speaking of success, Dad cleared his throat. The Anderson Global Board was quite impressed with their system review. They're considering expanding the contract globally. I know, I nodded. They reached out directly last week. We're meeting in Tokyo next month. Tokyo? Rebecca gasped. But I've been handling that account. Through Superior Systems, I said. Now they want us directly. Don't worry, your team gets credit for the first phase. That's kind after how we treated you, she admitted. It's not kindness. It's professionalism, I corrected. Something you once taught me, Dad. He nodded. Maybe you taught us more than we taught you. My phone buzzed. A quantum alert from Singapore. I opened a hologram and adjusted code in the air. Are you coding now? Mom asked. Quantum coding, I said. Securing tomorrow's Asian market. Trillions depend on it. They went quiet watching me work. For once they saw real power. Not in suits or offices, but in creating, protecting, innovating. I owe you an apology, Dad said softly. Better than an apology is understanding, I replied. Success doesn't always follow the old path. Mom smiled. We understand now. My phone buzzed again, another call. I ignored it. This moment mattered more. The quantum revolution is just starting, I told them. Want to hear what's next? They leaned in eagerly. I grinned, pulling up a new hologram. Here's what happens when quantum meets artificial intelligence. The Peterson family Christmas dinner was a masterclass in passive-aggressive warfare, served with a side of honey-glazed ham. Snow fell softly outside the Victorian mansion's windows while inside. The warmth did nothing to thaw the icy undercurrents of family dynamics. I adjusted my simple wool sweater clearance rack at Target, my brother Michael would surely point out, and took my assigned seat at the far end of the table. As the unsuccessful sibling, I'd long ago accepted my place in the family hierarchy. Olivia, darling, Mother chimed, passing the crystal gravy boat that cost more than my pretend monthly rent. We were just discussing Michael's new position as chief of neurosurgery. Isn't it wonderful? Michael preened in his designer suit, Rolex glinting under the chandelier. The youngest chief in St. Mary's history, he reminded everyone for the 7th time that evening. I quietly served myself mashed potatoes, thinking about the board meeting I'd ducked out of to be here. The acquisition papers were probably on my desk already, waiting for final signatures. And what are you up to these days, dear? Aunt Patricia asked, her tone suggesting she expected the answer to be, still nothing. Before I could respond, Michael jumped in. Oh, Liv's still doing her little administrative work at some clinic downtown. Receptionist, right, sis? Healthcare management, I corrected softly, catching Maria the housekeeper's knowing smile. She'd been helping me maintain my cover for years. Speaking of healthcare, Father interjected, swirling his expensive bourbon. Michael tells me you've dropped your insurance coverage. Really, Olivia, that's incredibly irresponsible. I took a sip of water. I have coverage. That discount plan you mentioned? Michael scoffed. That's not real insurance, sis. You know, as chief of neurosurgery, I could explain the importance of comprehensive coverage. I'm familiar with insurance systems, I said, thinking of the healthcare network I'd built across 3 continents. Familiar? Michael laughed. You can't even afford the basic plan at your little clinic. What happens if you get sick? Come begging to your big brother. Mother sighed dramatically. We just worry about you, dear. Michael has offered to help with your premiums. That's not necessary, I replied, checking my phone discreetly as it vibrated. The merger was complete. Of course it's necessary, Michael insisted. You need a real doctor looking out for you. In fact, I'm meeting the hospital owner next week about expanding coverage options for low-income workers. Like you. I bit back a smile. The meeting he was referring to had been cancelled an hour ago. He just didn't know it yet. How charitable of you, I murmured as my secure phone buzzed against my ankle. Right on schedule. Well, someone has to look out for the less fortunate, Michael continued, reaching for his ringing phone. Excuse me, this is the hospital. The room fell silent as he answered. Dr. Peterson speaking. Yes. What do you mean postponed? The owner never cancels. What announcement? His face paled slightly. New ownership. Since when? Today. But that's impossible. I took another bite of turkey, savoring more than just the flavor. What do you mean you need the owner's approval for my proposal? Michael's voice rose. Just get them on the phone. Mother beamed, probably assuming this was another example of her son's authority. Father nodded approvingly. Then Michael's expression changed. She's there right now? In my office. I dabbed my lips with a napkin and stood up. If you'll excuse me. Michael's phone slipped slightly in his grip. What do you mean, ask her yourself? I walked around the table, designer heels I'd kept hidden under the table clicking on hardwood. Michael's eyes widened as I held out my hand for his phone. This is Dr. Olivia Peterson. I spoke clearly into the device. Yes, the owner. Please proceed with the plan changes. And tell the board I'll be there shortly. The silence in the dining room was absolute, broken only by the sound of Father's bourbon glass hitting the table. You. Michael stammered. You're the one who bought St. Mary's Hospital? I smiled, handing his phone back. Along with the entire healthcare network? Yes. And about that meeting next week. I'm afraid I'll have to send my CO instead. I have a surgical center opening in Singapore to attend. Mother's fork clattered against fine china. But you work at a clinic. I own the clinic. And the building. And the research center behind it. I straightened my sweater. Actually Brunello Cucinelli, though no one had noticed. In fact, I own most of the medical facilities in the state. The crystal wine glasses trembled as Michael slammed his hand on the mahogany table. This is absurd. I would have known if the hospital network had been sold. Would you? I pulled out my tablet, sliding it across the table. Check your employee portal. Notice anything different? The blood drained from his face as the Quantum Medical Group logo replaced the familiar St. Mary's emblem. His fingers frantically scrolled through pages, each click revealing another layer of my carefully constructed empire. 17 hospitals, I said quietly. 42 research facilities. Over 200 clinics. All acquired through shell companies over the past 5 years while you were busy announcing your promotions at family dinners. Father reached for the tablet with shaking hands. These quarterly reports, these profit margins are quite good, I finished. That little administrative work taught me a lot about healthcare systems. Enough to revolutionize them. Mother's perfect composure cracked. But we've never seen you at any medical conferences, any hospital functions. I nodded to Maria, who projected a series of photographs onto the dining room wall. There I was, in the background of dozens of major medical events. Always present, always overlooked. Last month's neurological summit in Geneva? I pointed to one image. I was 3 rows behind you, Michael, while you bragged about your department's budget. By the way, that budget just tripled. Tripled? He whispered. Your research is actually quite good, I admitted. When you're not busy showing off your cars. The new pediatric wing needs it. Aunt Patricia clutched her pearls. The children's hospital expansion, that anonymous donor, was me. I checked my watch. A subtle Patek Philippe that cost more than Michael's annual salary. Along with the Cancer Research Center, the Medical Scholarship Program, and the Rural Healthcare Initiative you all called wasteful. My secure phone buzzed again. Excuse me, I said, reading the message. The WHO team needs approval for the vaccine distribution protocol. World Health Organization? Father's voice cracked. We're coordinating global medical AI implementation, I explained. That discount insurance plan you mocked? It's actually a revolutionary healthcare model being adopted by 12 countries. Michael slumped in his chair, his Rolex suddenly looking rather cheap. All those times I offered to help with your medical bills were times I was signing your paychecks, I finished. Though technically the board handles payroll. Mother's hand trembled as she reached for her wine. The board of your company? Companies, I corrected. Quantum Medical Group is just the healthcare division. The tech and research branches are separate discussions. The dining room doors opened as my executive team entered, led by my CFO. Miss Peterson, the Singapore team is waiting. And the Nobel Committee sent their preliminary response. Nobel. Michael choked on his wine. What Nobel? The research you presented last month on neural regeneration? I smiled slightly. Who did you think funded it? Father's face had aged 10 years in 10 minutes. All this time, while we were criticizing your choices. I was building something, I said. Something bigger than titles or corner offices. Speaking of which, I turned to Michael. The chief of neurosurgery position is safe. But you'll be reporting to the new director of medical innovation. Who's that? He asked weakly. Dr. Sarah Chin. You called her grant proposal unrealistic last year. She starts Monday. The room fell silent except for the gentle hum of my tablet displaying real-time hospital data from around the world. Success metrics, patient outcomes, research breakthroughs, all flowing through systems I'd built while they thought I was answering phones at a clinic. The Christmas charity gala. Mother suddenly gasped. The one you missed because you were working late. I was in Stockholm, receiving an award for medical technology innovation. I stood up, smoothing my simple sweater. The gala's silent auction? I bought everything. Anonymously, of course. The grandfather clock in the hall chimed 9 times, each toll seeming to mark another crack in my family's perception of reality. Outside, snow continued to fall, but inside the temperature had shifted from icy condescension to stunned silence. I have a board meeting in 20 minutes, I announced. But before I go, let's address the immediate changes. My executive assistant distributed tablets to each family member. These contain your new NDAs and updated protocols, she explained professionally, though I caught her subtle smile. She'd witnessed years of their dismissive treatment. Protocols. Michael's voice had lost its usual authority. For what? Family interactions with Quantum Medical Group, I replied. Given your position at St. Mary's, we need to establish clear boundaries. No more using your title to override hospital policies. No more expedited treatments for your golf buddies. He flushed. I never. Section 3, paragraph 2, I cut in. Complete audit of your department's special accommodations. Interesting reading. Mother dabbed at her eyes with a monogrammed handkerchief. Darling, surely all this formality isn't necessary among family. Ask Michael about last month's helicopter transfer for Senator Williams' son, I suggested mildly. The one that displaced 3 critical care patients. Father cleared his throat. Now, Olivia, about the hospital board. Has been restructured, I finished. Your country club friends have been replaced with actual medical professionals. Shocking concept, I know. My phone chimed with another update. The WHO team was waiting. One more thing, I added, pulling up a holographic display. The Peterson Family Medical Foundation, your pet project, Mother, has new leadership. But I'm the director, she protested. I corrected. The foundation now funds global healthcare initiatives instead of gala dinners. Dr. Rodriguez, the one you rejected for being underqualified, starts as director next week. The hologram shifted to show real-time data from our worldwide operations. Hospitals lighting up across continents, research breakthroughs flowing in, lives being saved through systems I'd built while they'd written me off. The Christmas gifts this year, I continued, will be slightly different. Instead of your usual donations to your own departments, Michael, you'll find I've established medical clinics in underserved areas. In your name, of course. Surprisingly, humility looks good on a chief of neurosurgery's resume. He stared at his tablet, watching his carefully constructed fiefdom transform into something actually meaningful. Mother, your social circle will be thrilled to learn you're now heading our patient advocacy program. Real work, not just fundraising galas. She gripped her wine glass tighter. But my committees will focus on actual healthcare access instead of charity fashion shows. I checked my watch again. Father, your hospital board position has been restructured into a community outreach role. Time to meet the patients you've been deciding policies for. The family portrait above the fireplace seemed to glare down at us. That old hierarchy captured in oil paint, now as outdated as their assumptions about me. My CFO entered quietly. Ms. Peterson, the WHO's Secretary General, is holding. One moment, I held up a finger, then turned back to my family. Next week's hospital board meeting will be interesting. For once, you'll all be in the audience while I'm at the podium. Do dress appropriately. The press will be there for the announcement. What announcement? Michael asked, his voice small. Our breakthrough in neural regeneration technology. The one you said was impossible last year. I smiled slightly. Turns out that little administrative work included some rather productive lab time. Standing, I straightened my sweater, revealing the subtle QMG logo pin worth more than Michael's car. Oh, and about that health insurance you were so worried about? Check your own coverage. You might find some interesting changes to the provider network. As I walked to the door, Father found his voice. Olivia, wait. All these years we never what? I turned back. Never noticed that your unsuccessful daughter was revolutionizing global healthcare? Never questioned why your hospitals kept getting mysterious upgrades? Or never thought that someone you dismissed might actually surpass your limited expectations? The silence was deafening. Merry Christmas, I said softly. The family dinner next week will be in my boardroom. 42nd floor of the building you've been calling that new medical tower. You know, the one with my name on it. As the door closed behind me, I heard Mother's faint voice. She owns the building where Michael's been bragging about his office. My assistant fell into step beside me. Should I tell them about the space station medical bay project? Let's save something for New Year's, I replied, stepping into my private elevator. Sometimes the best revenge is letting them discover just how wrong they were. One revelation at a time. In the reflection of the elevator's polished doors, I saw not the dutiful daughter they'd tried to shape, but the architect of a medical empire they'd been too blind to see being built right in front of them. The snow kept falling outside, covering the city in white, while inside the Peterson mansion, a family's carefully constructed hierarchy lay shattered like ornaments dropped from their perfect Christmas tree. The week between Christmas and the board meeting unfolded like a carefully orchestrated symphony of revelations. Each day brought new discoveries that shattered my family's remaining illusions. Day 1 started with Michael discovering his parking spot had been relocated to make room for the new emergency response helicopter pad, the one bearing the Quantum Medical Group logo he'd somehow never noticed before. His morning coffee shop? A QMG subsidiary that had been monitoring staff wellness patterns. Even his prestigious medical journal subscriptions came through one of my publishing companies. Your brother has been in his office for 3 hours, my AI assistant reported, reviewing every hospital policy he's ever approved. Show me his screen, I said, watching from my penthouse office as Michael frantically traced the breadcrumbs I'd left over years. Each click revealed another connection, another subsidiary, another piece of the puzzle he'd been too arrogant to see. Mother's Tuesday charity board meeting was particularly entertaining. Maria sent me the security feed as Mother realized that every major donor for the past 5 years had been one of my shell companies. The designer clothes she'd bragged about? From boutiques I owned. Her favorite spa? A medical research facility studying stress reduction techniques. Mrs. Peterson looks pale, Maria messaged. Let her find out at tomorrow's meeting, I replied, finishing plans for a cancer center. By Wednesday, Father discovered his practice building, suppliers, and investments all belonged to my company, Quantum Medical Group. He begged for a meeting. Next week, I said. After the Forbes cover. On Friday, the press and medical leaders filled the hall. My family sat in front as my CEO introduced me. Founder and CEO, Dr. Olivia Peterson. The crowd went silent. Mother gasped, Father trembled, Michael looked stunned. I showed the data. Lives saved, breakthroughs achieved, technology once mocked as impossible. Then I announced our next step. The first orbital medical research station. Applause shook the room. Finally, I replaced Michael with Dr. Chen. Cameras flashed as my family realized the truth. The empire I built in silence was now undeniable.